All right. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to our special guest, AJ. I came across his YouTube channel because during the pandemic, I had signed up for a disabled dance group, and it just wasn't a fit to me. Well, too much kids bop was happening. And I was in search of a place for me to dance during the pandemic because it really helped me. And I think there's also it's a really important lesson that just because you're disabled, you don't necessarily fit in the disabled classes. You could be in integrated classes, or maybe you even find yourself in a space where, it's not necessarily built for you as a disabled person, but they're willing to work with you. And that's great. After falling in love with the YouTube videos that I started doing, I connected with AJ on Instagram. And I first took I believe it was 3 a.m. yoga class, and I woke up at 2 a.m. And then AJ got on and was like, oh my God, I forgot to tell you, it's daylight savings time here because England has a different daylight savings time than us. But I went back to sleep for an hour and I got up and it was amazing and totally worth it. And then I've taken a couple Broadway dance classes, which was at a much more convenient time in the morning. And I loved it because anyone could really modify. I wasn't the only person just doing seated dancing. There were other people doing it and everyone could do whatever they were comfortable with. And I also loved that that AJ would critique me and tell me how to be better, because I also feel like that's something people don't necessarily always do when they're teaching dance with the disabled. And I'm there to become a better dancer, so I was glad for that. And also he taught me how to play or to dance to All That Jazz, and I found out that he was in the cast of Chicago in the West End of London, and I kind of nerded out about that, so I just think that's really cool. He's also just such a lovely human being who makes you feel so good and like you're the best of friends. And I was going in for an audition and I had steps down, and he gave me advice on how to go in. It was so supportive and helpful. And the only reason I ended up not doing the audition, ironically, was because you had to be able to do a Barbara Streisand impression, a Celine Dion impression, and somebody else. And I was like, I cannot learn that in 2 days. So, and then I was prepping for a burlesque dance show, and I asked AJ if I could just use some of his choreography as a base, and he said, of course. And I just love doing his online videos on YouTube, which I'll make sure everyone gets the link for, and the link for checking out all his stuff. And with that, let me kick this thing off with some start off questions, and then we'll open up the room to and your questions. So my first question is, what is one thing you wouldn't change about yourself, AJ?
One thing I wouldn't change about myself? Oh no. I thought it was gonna be a dance related question. The mustache is never going. The mustache is here to stay. One thing I wouldn't change about myself is, I guess, my creativity. That's probably my thing. I love making things.
You are very creative.
Is that a good answer?
Yes. What would be your dream job? If someone said you can, came in and said you can have any job you want in the world, just right now, what would you want it to be?
I mean, to be honest, it's one of the many jobs I'm doing, which is I'm writing a musical, and I want that to be my job, really. I'd love that to be my job that I do full time. I'd love it to be just writing and drawing and making up things and, just making stuff, basically. Yeah, if I was able to turn the writing musicals into my full-time job tomorrow, I would do it. I love it. You
just need an Andy Warhol warehouse to do all the things that you want to do.
I was saying earlier on, I just need a patron. Do you know what I mean? Do you remember patrons? Leonardo da Vinci had patrons. Why can't I?
Let's bring patrons back.
Let's just bring back rich old guys who, sugar daddies. They're sugar daddies. Never mind. So maybe I just need a sugar daddy. I don't want to give any sugar. Do you know what I mean? But like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't mind having a daddy if that's.
Maybe
This
you
took a
just need like
turn.
a
Hello, internet.
producer.
Sorry.
Maybe you just need like a producer.
Or that. Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, one person's sugar daddy is another person's. We should move on. We should move on. But if anybody's obscenely rich and wants to pay me to just make things, I make lots of things. So yeah.
What are your top 5 things that you keep in a rehearsal or performance bag?
Top 5 things. At the moment, a thing called ACT, AKT, which is a deodorant. It's an amazing little tub of, it's like magic and it smells amazing. And you can get it, I think, through the internet. And it's made by 2 guys who are actors. And it's won loads of awards. And like, you use the tiniest little blob of it and it just lasts forever. If they're not paying me, but the amount of time I spend telling people they should buy this, they should be paying me.
I'm going to look that up.
AKT.
It's
so
okay.
Good. So good. So that, my good old reliable dance support, of course. Gotta stay supported, you guys. Gotta stay supported. What else? Copious pairs of just loads and loads of spare clothes. I burn through clothes, like whenever I've been doing auditions and things. Once upon a time, it would have been my trusty portfolio of songs to sing. That's bringing me back. Oh, I don't miss that, I gotta say. Things I don't miss: carrying around basically the entire back catalogue of every tenor song since the dawn of time, when really all I ever needed was 16 bars of Lost in the Wilderness. Do you mean, like, so usually it would come back to the same 3 songs basically. And then was that 4? I can't remember.
Yeah, one more.
Oh, a charger. Mm-hmm. I love you, Charger, if you're watching this.
Yeah. I'll make sure that your charger gets the link for
Thank you so much.
Yeah. How did you get started doing like disabled dancing and seated dancing and all of
that? It was a very sort of innocuous move, actually. I was teaching in Pineapple Dance Studios, which is a dance studio in London. And I was teaching musical theatre workshops, and every week I taught a commercial dance class. And then one day I just thought, at the end of the class, there was like 20 people in the class, and I was like, do you guys want to stay on for an extra 5 minutes and just sit? There was loads of chairs stacked at the side of the room. And I was like, if you grab chairs, we could all just do a little dance. You could just follow me like a fitness dance, and we could do it sitting down. Like I put online for people who use wheelchairs, because I was like, I don't know if people do much dancing for them. And it wasn't a big deal, but it was just like, I thought, just do it in passing. And I plopped it up online, and I sort of put subtitles and stuff on it. And then, yeah, I didn't realize until months later, when I came back to look at it, that it had more views than anything else I'd ever done. And every week, more people were commenting on it and saying they loved it and saying they wanted more and that kind of stuff. And it was just really lovely. Like, it turned out that I was kind of, sitting on a loud chair is what I was doing. It turns out that it was filling a gap, which I didn't realize, but I kind of thought maybe, because I couldn't remember anything like that I'd seen. And that was a while back now. Yeah. And so I still get people messaging me about it. And the other day I went and taught a live class at Canterbury College for their learning support department. So I had it's like 150 people in the room. It was mad, because they do my class, all the students do that class and a few of the other dances I do as their daily exercise, and then they invited me to come along and do it for real. And so I had all the students of varying levels of disability, some SEN, some physically disabled, and then all of their carers and support workers as well. And it was amazing. And I've had that like across the world. I've had people in China and people in Australia and people in America, and yeah, it's mad. So that's how I got into it. And then
I'll tell you, like, you think you're sitting, and it might be lazy, but like every time I finish doing a video of you, I'm like, my abs are so mad at you. This is such a great workout. Like,
it is a great workout. And I think the more you're able to do, you know, there's people of varying levels of ability and movement do those classes and do those dances, and sometimes even just like able to move their neck in time to it and things like that. But up to people who can stand up, but I just feel more comfortable sitting down for dancing, for stability reasons, for example. And those people, like, if you are someone who has full use of your body and all of your muscles, you can really work out sitting down, because you do end up using so much core strength to try and keep yourself in place. Yeah, it's great. Go do it if you're watching this.
Yeah, look for the rolling on the river dance. That one always, I'm like crying at the end of that one. Like, oh,
is that in the hour long? Maybe.
Yeah. That, like, I'll do that one. Like, I'll get into a habit where I just get up and do that one like first thing in the morning.
That's a solid choice.
Yeah.
Tina, why not?
Yeah.
God rest her soul.
Yes. All right, Rachel, do you have any questions for AJ?
Hi, Rachel.
Hi. Yes. I'm not really familiar with your work. This is my first time learning about you. So I'm really excited that you're here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm looking forward to like watching your videos when Kelly posts them. It'd be great.
I'm hoping that they're not a massive letdown now. So if they are, don't tell me. And if you like them, get in touch, I guess.
So I am low vision and I can't really see the dance moves like on screen or anything. So I was wondering how descriptive your visual description is, like when you are teaching dance.
It varies from dance to dance. What I try to do is I try to put subtitles at the bottom of the screen, which I'm not sure if they can be read by the subtitle reader. And I need to check that actually, because no one's really asked me about that. So if that's not a thing that works, thank you for letting me know, and I will try and make that a thing that works. But what I do is I always put this stuff. So for people who are hard of hearing, I always put the moves across the screen in like emojis and words and things. So it's kind of like you can see what you're meant to do even if you can't hear it. But there's been less focus, I think, on trying to get it for people who are visually impaired. So I apologize if that's not something that works, but please do let me know and I will try and do something about that.
Sure, I'll definitely, like I said, I'm looking forward to watching your videos and seeing if I can follow along. That'd be great. I was just curious, I was wondering what kind of got you interested in dance? Was there something that, an experience that you had or something that was like, yes, this is what I want to do, or and writing musical theater? That's really awesome too.
Well, it's actually sort of it was a bit of a mad thing that happened. Like, I've danced since I was a kid, which mad. No, that's not the story. So I danced since I was a kid. My parents really wanted me to be a dancer, and I was like, no, I want to be a doctor or something useful, like a reverse Billy Elliot. And I was doing psychology in university, and I was cycling to see my friend just before the millennium. So I don't exactly know when it was. It was around Christmas then. And I was run off the road on my bike, and I woke up wrapped around a lamppost with these teeth pretty much are fake. My nose was broken. I'd metal all in my face. I'd cracked the back of my skull, and I was severely concussed. And basically, I lost most of my memory of my childhood. I couldn't read without migraines for about 6 months. So I had to flunk out of college. And my mum was like, why don't you go do something that's less brain related? You like dancing? And I was like, you always say I like dancing. But she was right, I did like dancing. So I decided to give that a go. So I went to the College of Dance, did that for 2 years. Then I went to England, which is where I live now, because I'm from Ireland, from Dublin. And I came here and I did 3 years of musical theatre college, and then I went into the West End Cast of Chicago. So that's how I ended up dancing. So it's a bit of a, but I wouldn't switch it. That whoever ran me off the road that day, thanks, guy.
Wait, did he just leave you? Did he just
Yeah, no, I don't even know who it was. But yeah, no idea. And people walked past me when I was wrapped around the lamppost, which is really, thanks guys.
You all failed.
Yeah,
What would you do?
I know.
Do
No,
that
to be honest, I mean, it feels surreal. It's so surreal to me now. Like, it's so long ago and it's so surreal. And I was so concussed that, like, I mean, I know it happened because I'm living proof. Like, but I don't remember much. I remember walking my bike home bleeding, and my brother being like, "What happened?" at the front door because he thought I'd been mugged. I was like, "Oh." But yeah, mad. And then dancing just kind of became a thing. I mean, I've always loved to dance, and I was teaching dancing when I was in university here in the university club. One second. Apologies, I'm a bit sick. But yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up doing dancing full time. And then I was choreographing pretty much from then on. And then I did musicals for a while, and I kept choreographing. Then I ended up choreographing my own little TV show segment for kids in Ireland. Did that for 2 years. Choreographed music videos, some musical workshops, and then I got into doing musical improv, which is like where you're actually making up songs on the spot. So I did some workshops with the Showstoppers, who are amazing, because I saw their show here, and they made up a show in front of us, and sang in harmony. And I was like, what? And my ex who I was with was like, this is my day of hell. And I was like, let me on the stage. So I went and did a workshop with them, and it was just the most fun I'd ever had. And I really wanted to hopefully get some work with them, but it just didn't work out. And then I was like, well, if I can make up a song on the spot, I could probably make up a song if I put some time in. So, do you know the film Drop Dead Gorgeous? Remember that film?
Yes.
It's like a mockumentary of beauty pageants where Kirsten Dunst versus Denise Richards. It's amazing. It's iconic. Go watch it. It's got some very mid-90s ableist jokes in it, which are the worst thing about it. But everything else about it's pretty much bang on. And so we removed that, but we were going to basically do a musical of that. And then we tried. We even got a producer, and then couldn't get the rights. So ended up writing my own thing instead. That came out of my brain, which is the one I'm working on now. So still. Is that the answer? I forgot the question.
Yes.
I've got ADHD. Sometimes the question and the answer have a very loose, open relationship. Do you know?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, thank you so much. That brought me to my next question. I was wondering if you had a favorite project that you've done or something that you're currently working on. Was there a favorite that you have?
There is. Performance-wise, my favorite thing I've ever done was either Chicago for dancing or the last 5 years for acting, singing, because I was in the Irish premiere of that as Jamie. People always go, as
you were Jamie?
As Jamie, yeah. I was like, I mean, I'm more of a Kathy, let's be honest. But yeah, I was Jamie, alas. But no, yeah, so for a performance that. But then I think the best moment of my life maybe was when we did the workshop of my musical Unicorn. And that was at the Other Palace in 2019. And it was just hearing amazing people sing my songs and then hearing the crowd lose it. Like, that was just the best moment of my entire life. And I can't wait to do more of it. Like, I just making things rocks. Because I thought there'd be nothing better than performing, you know. I was like, how can anything beat this, you know, when people are like, woo. And then, yeah, realizing that when the words and the tune and all that come out of you, and then you see that happen, it's great. Wholeheartedly recommend it. I mean, it doesn't pay, and it's been 5 years and the show still hasn't happened. But I would still recommend it. That's how good it is. There we go.
Rachel and I will perform an entire thing of your show and get you money. I'm sure.
I look forward to the webinar of that.
Yes.
Honestly, I'm here for it. I'm like, look, I want my shows, because there's a few things I'm working on. There's that, and there's another. I'm actually working on one for myself. Wob. Which is it's very weird. The one for me is very weird. There's two. There's like a normal-ish one for myself, which is just a bit of an autobiographical. And then there's another one, which is part of a wider show called Yours, which I was going to write with my ex, which is like 4 forbidden love stories across time, and they're kind of interwoven. And the future one's a synthetic person who gets, people decide no by like 51%. And so it's like the last live stream that this person does before they're about to wipe its mind and set it back to 0. And that's the one I'm working on for myself at the moment. So it's a bit mad. And Unicorn, still working on Unicorn.
Yeah, I want to see Unicorn just because I love the title of it. But and I hope that we can see some of your other works. That'd be so great to see your upcoming projects.
I mean, yeah, I would like. I was. Do you guys remember The Craft?
Yes.
Did you like The Craft?
The original one, right? Not the remake.
Yeah, not the new one.
Yeah. Okay. I was.
If you're in the new one
date.
and you're watching this, yeah, you. But yeah, no, the original. I've just been writing a musical of the original for the last few weeks, for fun, just for fun.
I was on a date, and that was when they announced that they were redoing The Craft, and I was like, I can't believe they're remaking it. Like, they don't need to touch it. And he's like, it's time. And I was like, and now I know this date isn't going anywhere.
Like, I'm gonna go home. He's like, really? And you're like, it's time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's time.
Yeah. No. So I've just been doing some work on that for fun. Last year I wrote a musical, The Hunger Games, with my co-writer in a course, my friend Naomi. She's so talented. So that was really fun. And we're never going to get the rights, but the songs are great. And I randomly bumped into Rachel Ziegler as we were about to perform it. I was like, hello, Rachel Ziegler. I know you don't know me, but do you want to come see The Hunger Games musical just wrote? She was like, oh, I wish I could, but we can't go indoors because we're shooting a thing in COVID. And I was like, that's a really good reason. And even if it's not real, well done on the speed. So, and then there was an amazing dog sitting opposite her, and I was like, oh my God, amazing dog. And then I was talking to the dog, and then the dog's owner said something, and I was like, that's Jamila Jamil's voice, and looked up and realized that was Jamila Jamil. It was her dog. And I was like, this is the weirdest, most famey, random thing that's ever. And I said, I'm so sorry that I talked to your dog and then realized you were you. She's like, it happens all the time. But yeah. What was the point of my question? I'm so sorry. It's going really well.
I think writing musicals. Have you thought about putting them on like TikTok? You could have like a Ratatouille thing happen.
Well, we did put the Hunger Games musical on TikTok a bit. There's like 3 songs on TikTok. If you look up Hunger Games the musical, it's got a logo and everything. My friend did. It's I'm pretty proud of it. Yeah, it's on there, so you can hear the songs. Also, Unicorn, you can hear songs from. And if you'd like, I can give you guys or Kelly, I can give you the link and you can share a song if you like share with people.
Okay, great. I would love to. Yeah.
My friend Jody sings it, and she is literally the most talented person I know. It's disgusting. I'm so glad she's on my side. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you meet someone, you're like, I'm so glad you're not on the other team, because I'd be.
Yeah. It's funny because when I'm in a class, I always want to work with the best person because I like feed off them. Like I'm like the plant from Little Shop of Horrors. Like I just like get better but there's so many people in class. It's like, I don't want to work with someone that's better than me. I want to be the better one in the scene. And I'm the opposite. Yeah.
No, I'm like, put me opposite Patti LuPone. Let me be crushed in the most beautiful way possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, there was a friend when I did improv stuff, when I was doing singing improv. There's about 3 or 4 people who I was just constantly like, come on, put me opposite that person. Because you know that it's just gonna be brilliant. And you're like, I want to be part of the brilliant thing. Like, and even if I'm the weak link, it's still better than being the strong link in the crapper version, I think. Yeah. Personally.
Exactly. I agree. What advice would you give someone like maybe with a disability or just like nervous about joining a dance class? How would you recommend they handle that?
Well, my first, I'm so sorry. So many coughs. My first thing would be to cough. Everybody loves the cougher. No, my first
especially now.
Advice, especially now, yeah. My first piece of advice would be, and then I made myself yawn. I am very tired because I'm sick. It's not this. This is a super interesting conversation. Apart from my bits that I'm adding, I apologize, everybody. I think my first thing would be to remember that you are there for you, you know, and like no matter what anybody else says, thinks, does, you're there to get out of it what you can get out of it. And I think that if you come back to that, if you come back to going, I am allowed to be here, I am worthy of being here, and whatever I get out of this is enough. Do you know what I mean? Like people can go into stuff feeling very much like, oh, unless I come out this amazing, it was pointless. And I'm like, no, you will learn something in that class, even if all you learn is never go to that teacher's class again, you know, but you'll learn something. And often what you'll learn is like from watching other people, even if it's something you can't do, being like, okay, well, that's, you know, my head wasn't quite like enough, or, you know, I didn't have the shoulders, or but you know, if it's a physical thing or if it's an emotional thing. You know, I've gone to classes where people who are brilliant dancers have been horrific teachers, and I've been friends with them and they've still made me cry, you know. So I think you can never judge yourself based on how a teacher treats you, because we're people and we have bad days and good days, and sometimes even though we're all doing our best is not necessarily good enough. And I think we kind of get put on a pedestal because people are like, oh, the teacher, you know, and it's like, well, the teacher is just a person who's come to work, you know, and they're putting the time in and they're here for you and they should be giving you a lot, but you should also be able to understand that, you know, sometimes it's rarely you, I would say, when the teacher is being horrible, you know, because I'm never horrible. Even when people are being terrible, I'm trying to be like funny and nice and, you know, make a joke about things. Whereas if someone's being horrific to you, it's not about you, it's about them. It's just like bullies in school. I mean, it's like, so going into any class, go in determined to, yeah, do your best. There's no point in going to a class and not trying, you know. I'd say that to anybody. Never let what anybody else says or thinks or looks at you like in a class stop you from living your best life. Because honestly, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. Am I allowed to curse? Do we say?
Yeah, you can curse.
Oh, fuck them.
Yeah. That's incredible advice for anything, I have to say. Like, you know. It's
from years and years of experience.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
No, it's like, yeah, I'm just like a poster with my face and just the quote, fuck them. Yeah. No,
I'll put it on a shirt.
Oh my God, yes, please do. I totally would. But yeah, no, it's true. Like I don't think anyone, they say, don't they, that who are they? They say that, you know, you give people the power to make you feel bad. And that is true, because we do all the time. And the problem is in this industry, and in any industry that's sort of like artistic and front facing, or even if it's not front facing, just writing, like we do give people the power to tell us whether we're good, you know? And I think we're not really trained to feel like our worth is allowed to be disconnected from how good we were in the room. Whereas your worth is intrinsic, you know, you are worthy, we're all worthy, you know? And so you could, what I say often to people I was teaching a meditation and dance class yesterday for a team of sober women, right? Sober Girl Society on Instagram, they're great. And what I often say to them is that, you know, if people say, you know, I'm an okay person, or you know, we all have a very low opinion of ourselves, generally speaking, particularly people who are in recovery. And sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but I will get there. But I think the thing is, like, we often don't think we're worth very much. And I said to people, right, okay, so, you know, do you do things for people? They're like, yeah, I try to do things for people. And I'm like, okay, if you couldn't do things for people, would you be worth less? And they kind of go like, well, like, yeah, if I'm not contributing. I'm like, oh, okay, so there's a man in the ICU or a woman in the ICU who was just hit by a car, who will never be able to move their body again. The only thing they'll ever be able to do is move their lips. Are they worth less than they were yesterday? And they're like, oh my God, no. Oh my God, like, no. I'm like, yeah, they're not worth less. Of course they're not. They're a person in a shell that has been cracked. You know what I mean? It's not, the person is still there. The person is still intrinsically worthy. They're not a less worthy person because of their ability to lift your grocery bags. You know, they're in there, and so are you. Like, and then when I started to tell people to direct that back on themselves, they're like, oh, but if it's me, then, which is where you kind of realize that we all have this kind of double standard whereby everybody else has some level of worth because they're people, unless we're a psychopath or a sociopath, and that, but we don't, you know. And I think theatre and the arts in general thrive, and in fact are kind of built on a foundation of making people feel like they're worth less, unless they're the best, unless they get chosen for the gig, unless they're stunning in the room and everyone else is like, oh my God. So it's almost like if you go into a room and you don't make everybody else feel like shit, you haven't done enough, which is a grim way to live your life. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm writing shows and I'm going, I want to invite people to come and audition for them. I don't want them to feel bad. I want them to come in, you know, loved and appreciated, because I'm chuffed that they even wanted to sing my, you know, and if they don't get the job, I'm so sorry. You know, it's like, there's no part of me that's like, oh, you know, and I think the day that I become like, oh, if I ever do, I don't think I will. Hopefully I won't. You know, the day that I become kind of like blasé and a bit like, oh my God, about people wanting to be involved in my work and involved in the translation of that into something, that's the day to stop. Because what an arsehole. Like, and I feel that about everybody else who's doing it. I'm like, most of the people I've met who are doing really well are quite nice, actually, a lot of them. And it's easy to be nice when you're doing well, right? When you've got all the things lined up and everything's falling into place. But yeah, sorry, I feel like I wandered all over the shop there.
No,
Was there any useful information?
That was great. That was all useful. Okay. I was just gonna say, I found that in class, it's not the person like who's there to learn, or you might label as the worst. It's the person that's just not respectful of like the teacher or the time or their classmates. Like, you know, in my improv class, the guy we hated the most was the guy that didn't want to be our friend, like got up to do his own show, like, you know, like teacher, like never listened to the teacher. So we had to spend the bulk of the class for her to be like, you're, you know, so, you know, if you're there.
Those are the worst. The ones who just don't care. And you're just like, why are you here? Why? I teach a lot of kids. Kids get sent to dance class. They get sent. When someone's been sent to dance class, you can always tell. You know, and no one wants to be that person's teacher. And not as a grown-up either. And, you know, so when someone wants to be somewhere, pardon me, when someone wants to be somewhere, it's instantly noticeable. But then when they want to be somewhere and they're selfish, also instantly noticeable.
So what do you do with do you have like techniques with working with the kids where clearly, you know, mom is pushing them in there, or parent or whoever? Is there a technique with enduring those?
Enduring is a good word. Enduring. I mean, I like to think I'm probably about as personable as a teacher could be, I would guess. I don't know. Like, I always try and meet the student where they are, you know. So if I'm like, look, your mom wants you to be here, you don't want to be here, do what you can do. You know, it's like I'm not going to make you do it like by yourself in front of everybody else. And they appreciate that, you know. And oftentimes there's something about a dance or something about whatever that you can get someone to kind of connect to. Like, there's usually something. But I have had sometimes they're quite wealthy kids who have been sent to my class or are put in my class because I'm teaching in the school, and they can be really difficult because they're just used to people saying yes, you know. I don't mind someone who doesn't want to be there being politely like disinclined, but it bothers me when they become, for example, homophobic. That's happened. I hate that because I hate it for lots of reasons, but I hate it because there's probably at least one other kid in the room is not yet out you know, and like, that's how I am, you know. I hate that. So it makes me furious. And then my kind of like, I don't know, Papa Bear mode engages, and I'm like, I've never said Papa Bear before in my life. Internet, once again, I'm so sorry.
I like it.
Maybe it's my new vibe.
Yeah. I'll get you a shirt. Although people will be like, how old's your kid? And you'll be like, it's a teacher thing.
Like, he's a 41-year-old yoga instructor. And there's 3 of them. Yeah. Who is this man? I just invented a sense. Flexible. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I do. I just try and meet. And be polite, but I'll put up with, try and meet people where they're at, because what are the choices there? Oh, actually, there's probably a good word to use. Compassion. I would say compassion, because, you know, everyone's just, I think everyone's just doing their best to come back. And if a kid's doing their best and it's still not very good because they're just not wanting to be there, then I'm like, you should do your best, you know. And if their best is just trying not to curse at me because they hate the fact that they're there so much, I'm like, let's have words with your parents. I have said to parents before, like, let's not do this to your child. Didn't go down well. But it's like, you know, if they're just, I think it's being a parent's hard though, you know, and like I'm not an actual parent, but I've got lots of friends with kids, and I kind of ended up being an erstwhile godfather to a load of them. And it's hard. Like, you come back to it and it never ends. So it's like, if you have an opportunity to offload your child for an hour, even so you can just have an hour of toilet crying time, I do understand it, you know, like I do get it. But I just think, take the time to try and find something that your child enjoys. So when you're having your cry, they can be off learning a useful skill, for example. Not being forced to learn Chicago. For me. For another example.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you had to share about the advice for disabled people about going into dance, and, you know, not letting people have the power over you, because I'm coming from a vision disabled perspective here, that I actually don't have any dance experience because I was always excluded from, you know, PE classes or movement type classes. So I really don't, you know, I feel a little uncomfortable moving in my body because I've just never had that opportunity to be expressive. And just even in acting classes and music classes, I've also experienced a lot of exclusion and some discrimination and things. And so it's just been like the arts, even though it's supposed to be a place for all and a very expressive place, I felt, in my personal experience, I felt that sometimes it can be very harsh towards me as a vision disabled person, or not inclusive of me. And so lately, I've been really excited to meet other disabled artists, and I'm really looking forward to like learning about your videos, so that maybe I can, you know, just practice and see what it's like to be more expressive in my body. So then maybe I will get the confidence to do, you know, an audition where I have to do some movement. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate those thoughts. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm really sorry that this happened to you. That's it just makes me really sad and angry that nobody's bothered to even just try and find a way for you, that, you know, through school and through, I don't know what age you are, Rachel. You have the voice of a young Rachel Bloom. So in my head, that's who you are. So like I'm 23, maybe living on the coast. But like, so I don't, you know, without knowing what age you are, I don't know how many sort of different institutions you might have been through that no one's taken the time to try and do that for you. But that feels to me like an egregious oversight. particularly in school, if you're in like PE classes and they're just like, no, sit down there because you haven't got the best eyesight. Like, how difficult is it to get a person to sort of like lead you by the hand? Do you know what I mean? And I don't know if that's necessarily what it would have been, but like for dancing, we show people how to move. Like I literally have to move people's arms into place all the time. Like, and as a fitness instructor, I do the same, like as a PT. So there's a lot of things that can be done to help someone be involved if you want to, right? I think that's a thing that we're dealing with a lot more of now. So this wicker chair is my nemesis. So hush now. But I think like there's a lot that's being done in theatre at the moment. There's a big push to try and be more inclusive here. There's certainly a lot of stuff for like including people who are hearing impaired in shows. My friend was telling me about the Royal Shakespeare Company have been doing stuff where they're bringing in deaf actors and people who are hearing impaired into the show, rather than just having someone sign at the side, bringing them in, and actually making it integral to the show, which is so interesting because it's like there were deaf people back then. Do you know what I mean? Like, we didn't invent them like 20 years ago when we invented, like it's the weirdness of going, disability is not new. So why are we treating it as though it's a thing we have to somehow change things to adapt to? Which is a weird thing, right? It's weird. You sort of think there's this weird kind of like, I don't know, it's like ableism. It's not weird, is it? It's a normal ableism, but it's weird to think that there's so many people throughout history, like billions of people, at this stage, throughout history, who would have been dealing with these situations across a huge spectrum, and yet like you've made it this far in life without anyone ever really making any allowance for you. That just makes me mad as a teacher and as a person, but I like that at the moment there is this kind of drive to try and be more inclusive. I think there is more, I don't know what specifically is done for people who are sight impaired with regards to dance and movement, but there must be classes out there. Whereabouts are you based?
Yeah, I'm here in the States. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and definitely, there's a lot of improvement that's been going on in the disability arts community. Well, just arts in general, like with inclusion. I'm so excited to see a lot of the changes that have been happening, and I'm looking forward to more changes. And there has been a lot of work with audio description and performing arts, and with that dance, a lot more inclusive dance companies. And so I'm really excited. So that's why I'm saying that this is really exciting to me, because I'm looking forward to exploring, movement. And I'm not saying like I'm going to, be great at it, but I don't know until I try. And, who knows what will happen.
Exactly. And honestly, you don't know is the thing. Like what am I? Oh my God, chair, stop. I'll get to it in a minute. Oh my God, sorry. Sorry about her. No, my position on a lot of this stuff is like, so there's a bunch of things. One is that I'm incredibly inflexible. I literally broke my spine. I didn't realize it for years because I was so good at like twisting myself out of the shape into a shape that looked normal, that I ended up with a leg that was spasming all day, every day. And one of my muscles, my lower leg was atrophying, my left leg, because I basically had no spinal curve at all. It was just like that. And I found that out 2 years ago. Had stopped dancing, had stopped doing everything, worked my way back to being able to do stuff, but it's never going to be like it was. And even when it was like it wasn't that great, right? So I was in Chicago and I couldn't really kick. I could spin, but I wasn't ever able to do it. I think I did the splits once kind of by accident. So I've never been one of those dancers that people go, oh, you've got a dancer's body. I used to be told like you've got a dancer's brain in the body of an art student, which I was like, fair, thanks, uncle. But I've not ever been that person that people look at and go, it makes sense that you're doing this, right? But then that's a lovely thing that's happening now, where they're kind of going across the board. it's more interesting if people who look like people are doing things. It's more interesting if the world on stage and on film looks a bit more like the world, right? And it's the very beginning of a snowball. It's a little snowball. You know, it'll become an avalanche later on, hopefully, in all directions, away from kind of a cisgender, straight acting, white, male orientated, you know. And I look like a cisgender, white, male, whatever, but I'm non-binary, I'm queer. In terms of disability, I've really recently, like last year, I was diagnosed with ADHD, really bad ADHD. And it made so much sense once they diagnosed me and I got on medication, the difference it made. Oh my God, it like doesn't even bear thinking about. How did I live? How? When it wears off, sometimes I'm like, oh, back to bed I go. Like I've been raw dogging my way through life. Not today, world. You know, I just slink. I'm like, I'm just like gone. You know. And then this month, actually, I'm currently in the process of, I've done my first assessment, and now I'm finding out whether or not I'm autistic, which goes along with ADHD in many ways at the moment. But yeah, according to my first test, I'm on that spectrum, and that makes a lot of sense because of a lot of other stuff that I find difficult. And so I'm kind of learning to work my way through, it's just adding context really to things. So it's not in, so it wouldn't be not in the same way that, for example, your visual impairment would come between you and being able to literally see what needs to be taken in, right? But in terms of like, I would be able to physically see it, but not be able to remember it, would be overwhelmed by it, would be upset by it, would be emotionally, whatever. Like it's all these things of like all the sensory inputs coming in, but actually my brain isn't able to handle it. So I would get massively overwhelmed and then have to like hide for 3 days. And I've always had pain with like loud noises, and now I understand why. So I wear loops, which are like these little sort of earplugs you can get. And so I'm sort of working my way around kind of figuring out what I should have been doing the whole time to look after myself, whilst the world is also starting to like revolve into a slightly new position whereby it's more interested in being there for people who are like me and you guys, hopefully, you know. It's such baby steps. Like I think there's a lot of lip service goes into it. So there's a lot of like people wanting to look like they've done the thing. So I currently work with children with SEND, so special educational needs and disabilities, in school as a learning support. And I'm dealing with 17 and 18-year-olds, some of whom are leaving in 3 days' time to go out into the world. And I am terrified for them, truly. And I went to a job fair with them, a career fair, specifically for SEN kids, about 2 months ago. And it was so depressing. It was so depressing because the people who ran it did it with the best of intentions. But people, when I say about box ticking, when I say about wanting to seem, it's like pink washing, when people give money to Pride and then still don't let gay people work, you know, or like discriminate against trans people, you know, which is just horrific. It's a bit like that, whereby people would come, they would have a stall, they would have a table, they'd be like, yeah, you know, come work for us. And I go, what work can my kids who I brought today, what work can they do with you? You know, what kind of work have you got going, you know? And one set of people were like, to be honest, nothing. Like we're really embarrassed. We turned up today and we've got no idea. Like we just were told to come here, and now that we're here, we're like, oh, we really should have made some kind of preparations. And I was like, yeah, you know. And I went and said it to the organizers afterwards. But it did annoy me because I was like, we spent a day, we've come here from school to the location. I've been, you know, they're excited to go around, and like there's lots of different levels of disabilities, lots of different levels of mental and emotional sort of like delayed development with some of the kids. Some of them have difficulty communicating, but like communicating I just had difficulty but you know, to go to something like that and not make the provision but to be able to say, oh, we went and we did it, but then not to actually have done it, It's like it was they did the thing, but it wasn't in the spirit of the thing, you know. And I think there's a lot of that goes. Sorry, that was a total tangent, but it's really upset me on the day and since. But yeah, I think there's a lot of that goes on. But there is also a lot of people genuinely trying to make a difference. You know, there's people in audition rooms. I was asked to put together. Oh, actually, I don't know if I can say that. Oh no.
A mystery thing.
Never mind. A mystery. Okay. There was a thing on TV at one point where I was contacted and asked would I put together some kind of act for it, shall we say, by the organizers, and they said they really liked my work with various different things. What do I want to do? And I said I'd want to work with a disabled and able-bodied dance crew. So I wanted to make one. There's going to be like people, different disabilities, people with, you know, visible and invisible disabilities, but also people with like limbs missing. So we can work with people who'd actually like had accidents, as well as people who were born with situations. So it's going to be a mix of things, right? And I was really excited about it. They seemed really excited about it. And then I could not get the people together to do it because partially there weren't that many dancers who were able physically to do it. But the ones who were able were booked, like so booked for 10 years. Like they were working, booked and blessed, honey. Like, and I was really happy for them, but really annoyed for me because I was like, this would have been epic. It would have been epic. There was going to be a bit where there was like a tick, 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 and then there's a bump. And basically the wheelchair was going to like explode apart. And they were going to slow motion, like pull it around your thing and then flump it back together. It was going to be very cool.
I will get on a plane and come do that. Just like give me a couple hours. That sounds really cool.
Look it up. I mean, I still had to find a wheelchair that would do that. But there's sport wheelchairs that are really, really light. And you can basically unhook them in like 2 clicks. So it would have been possible with like 10 people to like lift a person out and then this thing go woof, you know, like do a what was that? Was it the Covenant? Do you remember that film? It was terrible. But it was a bunch of hot boys with superpowers. But they did a thing where they were like able to like explode the truck and then put it back together or something.
Yeah.
Also abs. Coincidence? But yeah, did that answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to dance being more inclusive for all types of bodies, you know, so it's not just one body type, but it's for all different types of body types. And I'm looking forward to more inclusion for that.
Here. Yeah. I mean, I taught this class yesterday and I said to them, I was actually really self-conscious about it, but I said it and then I felt so self-conscious. I was like, you know, I was in my little vest because it was really warm, and I'm 42 now since like last month, and I was like, I'm self-conscious about my weight because I've gained a load of weight. I've been sober for nearly 3 years now, and when I stopped drinking, I was like, oh, I'm going to lose loads of weight. No, I gained loads of ice cream, so. Yeah, but it's fine. Pardon me for that. It's fine. He burped. It's fine. But like, I am self-conscious about it. Gained quite a lot of it. Yeah, it is what it is. And I just kind of went. I wanted to say to this room of people who are all sober in recovery or you know on that journey as well, and super self-conscious. Because one of the reasons people drink or use drugs or whatever intoxicants is to not feel all of their horrible feelings, right? And I was like in a room full of people where none of us are doing that. We're all trying to like be in the room. And I kind of went, you know, I'm not the shape I used to be. I'm not the shape I necessarily want to be, but I also know that I'm still a hot bitch. So, well, you know, and I was like, and if I can feel like that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, then all of you should be able to feel like that sometimes. And I'm not saying it's all the time, but you know, there's some days where you might be like, this isn't the body that I necessarily was trained to want. And I worked in fitness and dance for 20 years. It is rife with eating disorders and everything else. And no one's immune to it. But I'm still like, okay, so I'm a bit roundy, but it doesn't mean I'm not sexy. and it doesn't mean I'm not capable, you know, and it certainly doesn't mean I'm not talented. So it's like, you just kind of have to go, the body, yeah, what's my beach body? The beach is going to get whatever body I give it, you know what I mean? And ditto, an audition room, and ditto anybody on a date, I guess. Dates are just a different kind of audition, guys.
When I feel that way, I try to look at Lizzo and everything she does and how amazing she is, and I'm like, be more like Lizzo.
Yeah. And even she has her bad days.
Yes.
You know, do you remember she did that thing where she like was shilling that like weight loss, what's it called, milkshake?
Oh.
And everybody was like, why? And then afterwards she kind of, I think, said it, but like, yeah, we all have, and she said so. I remember a post from her. I don't remember what the answer to the weight loss thing was, but she definitely posted something saying, you know, we all have days where we're like, this, you know, am I just whatever, you know, like, am I, you know, if you feel like you're big, am I a whale? Or if you feel like you're too small, am I a twig? You know, like, we all have those days. And like, for me, I just look at myself and go, am I just like a shapeless old blob, you know? And then I'm like, okay, but I'm a shapeless old blob who laughed a lot yesterday, like, you know, and I can still smile. So it's nice. That sounds really cheesy. I'm sorry.
I hope you don't mind. I have another question for you. I was curious about how you go about with networking. So if you have this really great ideas and you need to put it together and you want to put it out there for everyone, do you collaborate with other people? Like, how do you find a team that you want to work with? And how also along the lines with managing just different projects, since you seem to have so many, how do you do like a time management kind of thing? I mean, yeah, I'm just curious about your creative process. I hope that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I just realized I was miming juggling and you couldn't necessarily see it, so I apologize. That was me kind of going woo, but also I can't juggle for shit, so that there would be like balls smash. Yeah, I mean, in terms of which projects do you mean particularly? Because they're different depending on what the project is. Do you mean for the dance thing I just mentioned, or do you mean for musicals, or do you mean for, what do you mean?
I guess just in general, like, how do you go about like your managing, since you're having in different categories and things, like, how do you personally like manage all your ideas, or how, I mean, do you have like a creative process? And then just networking, like, how do you find the people to help you, put it out there for everyone?
In terms of a creative process, just like sitting at a table beating myself around the head, just like going, why can't you think of a thing? What's a rhyme for yellow? But that for a long time. No, that's not true. I mean, that's it on a bad day. So, okay, they're different things, basically. Sometimes, because I'm an illustrator, that's my other job, one of my other jobs. And with illustration work, I tend to just, sometimes I just start sketching a random thing. Sometimes I have a specific picture I see that I'm like, oh, I want to use that sunset, and then I do something like that. A lot of the time I get people to give me prompts. I just say, can you tell me something you want to see? And I'll draw that, and sometimes that sparks something else. So it tends to be that I start off with something innocuous and then it goes somewhere. And songwriting wise, the initial song for Unicorn, which is the one that I'm going to share with Kelly, was written about my mum's relationship with me, basically. And it fully fledged kind of came into my head with the tune and the words at the same time. And I just was like singing to myself and was like, oh, that sounds like a song. So that's like songwriting at its most pure to me, is just when it just pops into your head and you're like, oh, where'd that come from? And it's like it's been dropped into your head by somebody with a letter. Yeah, it's weird. And then when it doesn't work, it is like trying to climb a mountain made of ice using salt peppers, for whatever they're called, crampons. It's salt peppers, I don't know. That didn't even, like, that was a sentence where
salt picks, like a salt pick.
I was thinking like salt shakers. I don't know. Yeah, just like
a
something
pepper
that would
grinder?
not work.
Yeah.
Like a wet fish. much. Do you know what I mean? Like even that would probably stick. But anyway, but like
wearing
yeah, just it's trying to like, oh God, I'm really wearing absolutely yes, yeah. Or in like a really sheer ball gown that's like chiffon and just slides off. Yeah. Looking fabulous though. Yeah, but it's on a bad day. It's when the flow doesn't happen, it is just impossible to make happen. It's impossible. It's like, it's just awful. It's like trying to claw your own face off. It's terrible. So what I often do in those days is I just end up writing rhymes. I'm better with words than I am with music by miles. I do love writing music or writing tunes anyway. I'm not great with like music. Getting better. But words are more my jam, so I can like write rhymes and things and clever little bits, and I kind of go off on little word journeys. And then when it comes to music, sometimes I get really trapped in just really basic little loops, and I'm like, that's not good enough. But what I often do is plop things. I used to plop things into my phone. I just sing little bits, and then later on I come back and listen to all the little bits and see if any of them made sense. And if one of them does, I'd use that, and then that could sometimes become part of a different song. And nowadays I tend to use apps where I get to put the chords together and things. It's different. It is different. It's not what it was when I used to just sing to myself and then put music underneath it. Because when you decide on the music, everything else gets determined by the music. So it's quite different, but they're probably a bit more sophisticated maybe. I don't know. And then in terms of dancing, it's always led by the song. So I pick the music and then the music tells me how to move. I have a bit of a weird thing called anaphasia, which is where I don't see things in my head. So if you close your eyes and I say like, in terms of like, again, I hadn't really considered what this might be like for somebody who's sight impaired. But like for people who have full eyesight, a lot of people, when you say to them, close your eyes and think of an apple, they'll be like, I can see an apple hanging behind my eyes. And it's like a red apple with a little shiny bit in the corner. It's like the cartoon apple that we kind of know from like, I guess, ads. I'm not really sure. And I don't know if that would be something that would intersect with your experience, Rachel. In fact, you could tell me if you want, but you don't have to, obviously. But I don't see things when I close my eyes. If you tell me to think of an apple, I just almost see the letters of the word apple. Tragic. So it's like I don't see things like when you're reading a book. A lot of people will be like, oh, I can see the thing in my head, and I'm like, no. And for years I was like, there's something wrong with me. And then it turned out I was neurodiverse in many ways, and that's one thing, but that's actually not the same. It's that this anaphasia thing is where it's not a visual brain. So I draw things and I make things to kind of make them visual outside my head, which is why I love reading. I write comics and I draw comics, and it's why I love them, because you can literally show people the thing you mean, rather than being like, it was 1,000 feet tall. Do you know what 1,000 feet tall looks like? Does anyone? I'm sure lots of people do. I don't. Like, I couldn't tell you how tall a building that is. Was that like 30 stories? And again, say 30 stories to me, I'm like, I don't know how tall that would be. So for me to be able to show the thing, to draw the thing, and then show people in that way is really helpful for my brain. Once again, I have forgotten what the question was.
It was your creative process, and then how you connect with people to like make a musical or get your stuff out there. How do you network?
Thank you. Yes. So sorry, Rachel. So how do I network? Lots of ways. Facebook, I used a lot back in the day. I do a lot of networking on Twitter, or I did until Elon Musk tried to, I'm going to miss Twitter. It might be gone by tomorrow.
It's a burning garbage.
Twitter was great. Twitter was so good, Met some very, very cute boys on Twitter. Hey guys, if you're out there. So embarrassing. I'm trying to be funny, but I'm just coming across as a cheesy, slightly sleazy bastard. Anyway, right. Networking.
If anyone would like to connect with AJ,
Facebook is great. Facebook is great. Sorry?
I was gonna say, if anyone would like to connect with AJ, you can contact us, and we'll vet you first, and then send you
Yeah,
on.
my girls have some things for you to go through, but yeah. But no, yeah, networking, Facebook was great for that. Instagram's good for it. Just social media in general is pretty good. Like, I met a lot of people through that have been quite useful. And I've been useful to them. I think it's a good way to think of it is that, and this is an interesting one from a disability perspective, but also from just a general perspective, which is that you are useful to them, right? And this comes back to a self-worth thing that we just talked about earlier on, which is that you're useful to those people. So those people need you, right, in their shows. And they need your input and they need your guidance and they need your unique offering, right? Whether or not they know it, that's up for grabs. But then you can always let them know, right? In a way that makes sense. And if they don't listen, then obviously they're not the right person or it's not the right show. But like, you knowing your worth and going into a situation going, I'm able to bring something to this. If I'm in this show will have a different feel to other shows like it that have been on before because of what I bring to the table. You are a secret special ingredient. Everybody is. But a lot of us are very similar ingredients. And then there's people who are more unique. So it's like, go into those situations going, what can I bring to this? What can I bring to your show? What kind of stuff do you want? If you go to, like, for example, there's mixers and there's kind of online things and there's lots of societies and groups and stuff where you can join, where it's like about arts. I'm in a load of them on Facebook where it's like about sort of, for example, queer people who make art, right? Queer people who do theater, queer people who do this, that, and the other. I've not really joined many for ADHD, and I guess we'll see how the autism thing shakes out. And if that's a thing where I feel like I have a right to be in that space, I would definitely be joining that. I'd be interested to speak to those people anyway, because I'd be interested to talk about what kind of theatre they want to make. But I think certainly we'll have some crossovers with mine. But there's lots of groups for specific kind of more niche stuff. And I guess the danger with that is that we become ghettoized and that we end up just talking to ourselves, until someone needs to make a TV show about it and suddenly they contact the group and go, which one of you wants to help with this? Which happens a lot. Happens with a lot of my trans friends with regards to shows. My show is transcentric. So it's got a lot of like gender diverse people in it, but also racially it's very diverse. And we wanted it to look at real life. And I'd like people of different levels of ability to be in it, and we're trying to create a culture within our show. There's like a mission statement to our show, which is that it will never be put on by people who are not like the people in the show. It's never like, the lead's never going to be played by anyone who isn't a trans woman, because that's who the woman is. And that's super important. It's the point, right? And yet you can just imagine someone being like, why don't we just get someone famous in? Because that's why. Because it's not going to go on. That's why. So I think, yeah, joining online groups is a great way to network. Go to things and talk to people. You seem quite gregarious, Rachel. I feel like you're someone who can talk to people. I know Kelly can talk to literally anyone in the world. So I think, and also so can I, and I'm not even an extrovert. That's the mad thing. I am an extroverted introvert, is what we've ended up with, which is to say I'm great when I'm on. And then I have to go home and cry and hide for a few weeks. But that's a lot of us, you just have to gird your loins, plural. And if you can, go and do it. Bring support. Bring support, Don't go to these things alone. Always go with someone else. Go with someone who's got your back and your front and any of your sides, should those arise, But yeah. And then the other thing is I did a course called BML in Dublin, not in Dublin, in London, pardon me. Dublin. I did a course called BML, which is books, music, lyrics, which I'd already written and I think done the first workshop of Unicorn before I joined it. But I wanted to get a bit more of an idea of how writing things worked, because I'd never done it before. It was just kind of a bit of have a go, And then I met loads of people through that course. Some really, really lovely people, some really lovely, talented, great people who I've kept in touch with since. So yeah, doing courses, doing classes, you'll end up with the good ones will always stick. And then everybody else, just let them wash off, But going to things and just being nice to people, I think, is increasingly something that I've always valued it, but I think more and more I realize other people are realizing that they don't want to work with people who are horrible. So, being nice in the end is something that will get you remembered, I would say. Is that helpful? Hopefully.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing those experiences and insight. Thank you. And I was going to say just about the apple thing. A lot of times when people say, can you, see this apple or whatever they're trying to have you visualize, it's also sometimes you can change that word in your head a little bit and just think about like, well, how does the apple feel when you eat it? Like, how do you feel about the apple? Like, do you like apples? Do you hate apples? How does the apple feel in your hand, or like, how does the apple smell? Like, there's different senses, other things that you can, use with that. So that's just something that I try to do. And sometimes that can also play into, your creative process, because it doesn't always have to be like a visual art thing. It can just use other senses to help you. So I just thought I would share that. Thank you so much for sharing your insight.
No, you're so welcome. That's really interesting, because that's how I think of an apple. When I was kind of being a bit disingenuous when I said I was just slightly mocking myself when I said the word apple, because when I think of an apple, I do think of the smell, and I do think of the feel of it, and I think of how it sort of smooth it is. Do you know what I mean? And I think of the concept of an apple rather than what an apple looks like, because I can't see it. But I'm like, the space an apple occupies in my head. Does that make sense? Like, it's almost like a space which could contain an apple. It's so weird. I'm sorry, but no, thank you. That's so interesting. And it's you're thinking more in a sensory way than me. Actually, I think mine's even less sensory than that. Mine's more like conceptual. But yeah, I absolutely do. When I think of an apple, the smell of an apple is definitely something I get. Like. So thank you. That's fascinating.
Oh yeah, like what could the apple mean or like represent, or what can of occupy the space of this apple, or how can I be the apple? What kind of shape can I make with the apple? Does the apple and just like other sensory things, like as the apple like already, is it a cold apple? Like, do your teeth like it? Does your body like it? Just there's so many different things. Or is it a warm apple? Like, has it been sitting out in the sun? I don't know.
I don't know if I'd eat that apple. But like cold hard apples always hurt my teeth. So when you think of apple and someone goes, "I'll have this," and you hold it and you're like, "Oh, this is gonna hurt." You know what I mean? And that's just it's a very, very specific experience, isn't it? Random. But yeah, so many different ways to know of an apple. God.
And I just want to add with the connection thing, I've gotten in the habit when I make a great connection or I love a teacher or something, I write them a thank you card. And that's gone over really well. Not to toot my own horn, but it was just something I did. I had read to do that in college, like when you're meeting with admissions people or whatever, like send a thank you card. It's just something I've kind of carried with me when I meet someone.
That's a really lovely thing to do. I think that's, anyone wants to be thanked, right? We love a bit of thanking. Like, who doesn't love being appreciated for the stuff that they do? And so often we're not. I literally broke my spine and people were like, "You're going to be in class tomorrow though, right?" And I was like, "I said I broke my spine." They were like, "Yeah, but I need my class." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And that's after teaching them for like 10 years. So people can be really, they can take you for granted. So I think when people don't take you for granted, it's really special.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you cards at the wazoo, always. Someone gave me a box of, what are they called? Quality Street one year, the little chocolates. Do you guys have those in America?
I don't think so.
like a box chocolate, like a tin of chocolates, like a Christmas type tin type thing. I still love her. Beryl, if you're out there and you're watching, love you, girl.
It's the little things.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, AJ, I'm gonna let you go because you probably want to rest, but I'll end this with some ending questions now that we've had this amazing discussion. What would you want the world to know about what you do?
I would like the world to know that I'm telling stories that try and connect us to ourselves and to each other. That really matters to me. That I think everybody could stand to look at how connected they are to themselves, and I wasn't connected to myself for a long time. So it's, you know, the difference is huge, and I want to be able to share that with people. That we're all in this together, I guess, and that's reflected in my work and in my way I try and live my life as well. Yeah. And just that I'm out here and I'm trying, so please come someone give me money to make things. Money. Yeah.
If I ever am gifted a large sum of money, I will definitely give it to you.
Thank you so much. Guys, you a verbal contract is legal in binding in the state of New York.
Yes. I think I made a promise to buy someone a building in the last video, so these are all going to be legally binding YouTube videos.
I mean, listen, we all said some things we didn't mean, but then you said that, which you had to have meant because it was legally binding. So, but it's been a real pleasure talking to you both. Thank you for coming, Rachel. Thanks, Kelly, for having me.
Yes. If anyone would like to stay in touch or ask you any questions in the future, do you have a particular place you'd like them to find you?
I mean, for the moment, you can find me on Twitter until Elon cacks it. Could be tomorrow. I'm at Sit Down AJ on everything. So find me by all means, please. Come say hi.
And I'll make sure that gets out to everybody. And I like, for a while when I would search all your videos, I always would write "sit down with AJ" instead of like "sit down," because I always thought like, oh, it's seated dancing, you're sitting down. And I'm like, no. Yeah.
It's more like it was actually "sit down and shut the fuck up, AJ," and then it was too long. So "sit down, AJ," and then it's just kind of stuck now. I feel like it's a problem now. I feel like I should get a different web handle, but well, here we are. You know, I'm 42. I mean, it's not like anyone's gonna care if I change it. So, yeah.
I think it works. So keep it.
Thanks. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I don't know if I answered anything in a particularly useful way. Very possibly I answered questions that were not asked and didn't answer the questions that were. That happens a lot. ADHD. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop me a line. I will try and be as helpful as I can with the limited means that I have. So
great. Well, thank you so much, and we'll hopefully talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, AJ.
Have a lovely day, guys.